Hello, welcome to Bohicaville. I'm Paul, and today is Sunday, October 13th, 2013. Well, the veterans and other protesters stormed Washington, D.C. today, and they took down the barricades at the World War II Memorial and apparently carried a number of the barricades over to the White House um, in protest of the closure of the memorial. Now, um, the number of people was not nearly as great as were expected. There were some that were saying there was going to be a million veteran march, and it was more like thousands. So I'm sure that the lamestream media is going to be able to poo-poo this whole thing away as being a bunch of, just a handful of radical extremists. Um, kind of like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin were a bunch of radical extremists. Um, I did see a piece of video a while ago where there was a group of protesters outside the White House, outside the White House fence, and they were just basically standing around chanting. They had their signs, and it was all very peaceful. But then these police showed up, a group of police, and some of the police had the riot helmets and shields over their face. And I was wondering why the police were there because there was nothing happening. I mean, there was no reason at all for a police presence. These people weren't doing anything. They were just standing around and chanting and protesting and exercising their First Amendment rights. Now, regardless of what you think about that, we do have First Amendment rights in this country. Uh, so this video showed the police officers getting in between the protesters and the fence outside the White House. So then, for a few minutes, you just had the police officers just standing there and the protesters just standing there. And some of the protesters were taunting the police officers, and some of the other protesters were um, reminding the taunters to keep it peaceful. But the police were just standing there. I mean, and nothing happened. There was no kind of violence, nothing like that. So, which brings me back to the question, why did they feel a police presence was necessary to begin with? People weren't doing anything. They were protesting. Big deal. People protest all the time. Why is it a big deal just because it's happening during this phony government shutdown that we're going through? Or I guess I should say partial government shutdown, not phony government shutdown, because there are some functions of government which are shut down. Um, anyway, that got me to thinking some about liberty and security in our state. And by our state, I mean the United States of America, our nation state. And it reminded me of one of my favorite quotes, which is from founding father Benjamin Franklin, who said, "They who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." And so it got me to thinking about liberty and security. And if you go and ask the average person which they would prefer, liberty or security, the answer is probably going to be, well, I want both. Well, that would be nice. I mean, it would be kind of nice to have both liberty and security, but they cannot both coexist. You cannot have liberty and security at the same time because the cost of security is liberty. And I think whenever we organize into societies, and history has shown us this, whenever we organize into large societies, things always skew towards the side of security rather than liberty eventually. They may start out with a lot of liberty, but everything always skews more towards security and away from liberty. And I think the reason for that is that even though the cost of security is liberty, security doesn't require any action on the part of the individual. All security requires, in order to defeat liberty, is for the individual to sit around and do nothing. That's all security requires. And I think that's why we always end up skewing more towards security than liberty, because liberty is harder. I mean, security doesn't require any action on the part of the individual, where liberty requires individual vigilance and individual responsibility. And it requires that vigilance and responsibility to be ongoing. I mean, it can't just be for one day or 1 week or 1 month. It has to be for a lifetime in order to preserve liberty. So liberty is a lot harder than security. And it does require action on the part of the individual. So I think that's why we end up always skewing more towards security and away from liberty. And the mass media keeps us entertained with our television programs, football games, baseball games, Facebook, YouTube cat videos, and all this sort of thing. And it's just a distraction to what's really important. Anyway, what do you think? Do you want liberty or security? Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed this video, then please thumbs up and subscribe. And if you didn't enjoy it, then thumbs down and don't subscribe. That's it for me. Ciao.